Hello and welcome back everyone to Master Blender 3D with Wild West environment. In the last lesson we got ourselves some nice supports for the water tower. We ended up on that and we're going to continue on with the setup. But before doing that, before getting any further, ideally I'd like us to get a nice preview of what the overall setup looks like outside of just a 3D viewport of a modeling section. So I want to make sure we get ourselves a nice just overall preview of a render, how it looks going to look like with the lighting and whatnot. All right, so for us to do that, we're going to go on to shading at the very top, like so. And once we click on it, we're going to see ourselves a bit of a different view in regards to the viewport, how it's set up. We're going to see a new window at the bottom called, shader graph. Right now for this, it's set up by default as object. We're going to change this to be set to world. This will allow us to change the shader parameters for the world itself. And once you have this set, you're going to be able to see this type of a setup. If you're not seeing it, you should be able to click the little dot on your numpad, like so, and it will zoom onto it because by default it should be selected. All right, so once we have this, we're going to go ahead and change what this looks like. You can see we have a different visuals in comparison to what we had before because we have a preview studio lighting, but we want to make sure we have a custom setup for the sky texture. And there is a very nice node for that. We're going to hit Shift and A and search for sky. There we go, sky texture. To actually search on it, make sure you have your mouse hovered over the graph. Otherwise, if you were to press it on the viewport itself, you're going to have a complete different menu that's for the viewport and not the graph. So just make sure to hit Shift and A on the graph itself and then search. Automatically you can type in search for sky, basically sky texture, to get this type of a node. This node can be right away just connected to the surface of the world output, just like that. And then afterwards, we're going to be able to see a bit of a difference. In this default view, it's not going to be visible, but if we were to go on to viewport shading, you will see quite a bit of a difference, like so. And right away, with the sky texture node, we can go ahead and rotate the lighting source, for example, over here, like so. And we can also change the sun intensity. So right now it's a little bit too bright. Let's go ahead and change this to a value of 0.5. And that's going to lower it down a little bit. And finally, the air is going to allow us to give us that Western type of a feel towards the environment. If we were to increase it, you can see it giving us that orange type of a gloom. We can change this to a value of 2.5. And it's going to give us a nice bit of orange setup that's more closer to the environment of a Western scene. So I think just by doing this, we're going to give ourselves a nice type of a lighting. And in regards to lighting, if we were to go and change it from within the render tab, there is a render engine. We can change this from Eve to cycles. And then right away, I'm going to go ahead and change the device to GPU to make sure it runs faster. If you're not seeing this option, make sure you go to Edit, Preferences, and within the system, there's going to be Cycles Render Devices. Make sure you, instead of none, you have it set to either one of these. I'm using CUDA. That seems to work best for me. OptiX is pretty good as well. And yeah, once you're done with that, you can change the max samples. For a preview, I'm going to use 20. And for denoiser, I'm going to also tick this on to make sure we're getting ourselves a nicer type of a preview without that noisy look that you'd get from cycles. All right, so far so good. Right now, the overall material is a little too white. We can go ahead and fix that. Because this material doesn't have anything, it's just going to give us that plain look that we have over here. So we're going to go ahead and get ourselves a new material, set ourselves up with this Greybox, and then it'll give us a much nicer preview of what we have so far. We're going to go and select either one of the object pieces. We're going to click New, and that's going to create ourselves a new material. We can now double click on this material. We can call this Greybox matte, like so. And in order to edit this material, we're going to make use out of the shader tab over here. Instead of the world, we're going to change it to an object, like so. By default, it is set to a complete white. We're going to lower this down by a little bit to a more reasonable amount. Let's say something like this will do. Since it is a gray box, we might as well get ourselves more of a gray value. Afterwards, we also want to have a bit of an extra setup. And that extra setup is going to be using ambient occlusion. So for us to do that, we're going to click Shift and A, search for ambient occlusion. This little node will allow us to get a more definition between object pieces. It'll define how the form looks like a little bit better. If I was to connect it right away, we can see what it does. And I'm not sure it's quite as visible, but in corners over here, for example, we can see that it's giving us a darker bit of edge. We can also control it with something called color ramp. So I'm going to click Shift and A, search for color ramp, this one over here. Let's go ahead and connect it. And now if I was to drag the dark piece over here, we can see that this is getting darker up. And just like that, we're able to get ourselves a much nicer definition on the form. It's only for this piece for now. We're going to fix that in a bit, but that's more than enough for now. It is set to be white. We lost that control for the base color. If I was to hold control, we can take it off. We still have that gray. So what I'm going to do, just to make my life a little easier, is I'm going to select back onto this color. Going to go ahead and, where would it be? In the hex value over here, I can select it. Can just tap on this, click Control C to copy it, and then go ahead and reuse that color. I'm going to go ahead and click Shift and A. Going to then search for color mix color. There we go. Mix color will allow us to combine colors. So the ambient occlusion is going to be applied on top of the color we want. So it's going to be set as B. We're also going to change it from a mix. We're going to change it to multiply. This will turn every part that's darker than the original value of A into an even darker value. But whenever it's a lighter type of a result, it's not going to give us any other change. And I'm going to go to A and just paste in this value by clicking Control V, just like that. That's pretty good. Let's go ahead and connect it. And now we're seeing that we have ourselves a nice bit for the side. To apply this for all of the setup, we can do that. We can click A, select all of the pieces. Then we can click Control L and link materials. This should link all of the material that we set up with the rest of the pieces, just like that. Maybe looking at it now, it's a little bit too dark. I'm going to increase the value just by a little bit, like so. And I'm going to slide the whiteness a little bit closer to the dark, so it wouldn't be as smooth of a transition. We're harshing that up. Just like that, I think that's going to work out quite nicely for us. All right, so we got something going here. That is looking good so far. Now let's go back onto modeling mode and continue on with the setup. So now whenever we want to preview the setup, we can go on to the render mode. I'm going to double check it's still on compute and 20 samples. And we're going to get ourselves a real nice preview. As a bit of an extra, I noticed that this piece over here is not smooth shade. Smooth shade is basically allowing us to average out the vertices. We'll talk a bit about that later in the future, a little more in depth. But all we need to know now is that we can right click and we can click on Shade Auto Smooth. On the bottom left hand corner, we'll see that the menu pops up with the angle by default set as 30. We're going to get a smoother shading. So before you can see each individual topology, but with this enabled, we can just smoothen everything out. And for now, that's more than enough of what we need to know. All right, so that's going to be it from this lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you in a bit.